into the room. You're free to just be you. Tell me your story, and we will go exploring. Let's explore together. Let's explore together.
Hello and welcome to Sack in the City. I'm your host, Teresa Marie. Joining us today is Rebecca Price. Rebecca Price is the host of the Art of Sexuality, as well as a relationship coach and a student in tantric sex.
Oh, yes.
Lots of good stuff to talk about. I can't wait to talk about all of it. I'm not going to lie, especially the tantric sex part, because I, like a lot of people out there, I know a little bit, and when I say a little bit, I really don't know anything, but just the word tantric. Whew. Well, let's back it up a second before we get to the climax, no pun intended.
Okay.
Before your journey being a relationship coach, finding yourself intrigued with tantric sex, and finding yourself of the amazing show, you know, The Art of Sexuality. Tell us about Rebecca before that. Did you have a normal upbringing? I know, I'm diving right in. I
It's
really
okay.
am. Let's go swimming.
Okay. I wouldn't say normal.
Okay,
Challenging.
sure.
Single mother, last of 6.
Wow.
We grew up poor in Oroville, and I dealt with a lot from my brothers, my siblings. I had a sister that was, when I was 15, she was hit by a car right in front of me. Changed my life.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
But at the same time, it actually made me who I am today. You know, after she got hit, I went home. I ran home, and something, I don't know. I can't define it today. It was like a switch was flipped, and I stopped. I calmed down, and I walked to the house. I got my brother. Couldn't talk to my mom, and we dealt with it. And so it was interesting upbringing. But again, I took myself into 2 separate places. You know, I was embarrassed about my family and my upbringing. We were poor. But when I was at school, I was a different person. And I threw myself into sports once I got into high school. So I did cross country, basketball, track. There was never a time that I wasn't in a sport. And it helped me get through.
So you were busy.
I kept busy. And that's kind of my thing. It's like the busier I am, the better I can handle. And I'm better with too much on my plate.
Right.
I've been told.
Right.
So, but it's fast forward many years, it made me the strong person I needed to be for my children
Sure.
when they were in difficult situations.
Now, in your upbringing, a lot of kids, busy household, not a lot of money. Was sexuality something that was discussed openly? Was it talked about, nurtured, any type of education there growing up?
No, not at all. Okay. In fact, my mom finally made the decision because it was kind of an abusive relationship. She moved from New Jersey, where I was born, to California to get away from all of that. Unfortunately, my mom, when she got here, she got us a new life, but she never lived after that. She went to work, she came home, watched Jeopardy. She didn't participate in life after that.
Sure.
And I always had this fear that I would wind up alone like my mom, but I realized my fear was that I wouldn't live like my mom. I wouldn't live life.
Well, you said that she started a new life.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, I will say I got to give my mom credit to have 6 kids and be in the situation she was in. She didn't have much of an education. I don't even think that she graduated high school. She did want to be a nurse, but then the abuse kept going, and my 2 brothers moved to California and said, "Mom, please come out here, get away from all of this." And so she did. It takes a lot of courage for a woman to just walk away from something like that.
No doubt.
And at one point we actually drove No, the first time we went from New Jersey to California, we were on an airplane, which I'll never forget because my mom and my sister put me on the window seat. And I was all excited. I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, I'm on an airplane for the very first time. And I look over, my mom and my sister are holding hands going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, just fear. And I remember actually going, nope, I don't want to be part of that fear. So I'm going to stay looking out the window. And I was only 6 years old. So it's just interesting because I think there's something very early on that that had a courage about me that I don't understand.
That's beautiful. Let me ask, what was the reason for the move from New Jersey to California? That's a big move. What was the reason behind that?
My dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
Abusive.
All right.
I don't have very many memories of him. The only two that I have is walking into a room that he was not clothed and going to my mom and saying, Mom, Daddy's laying in bed naked, and her fixing it and covering him up. And then while I was in New Jersey, him giving me taste of vodka.
How old were you?
Probably about 5 years old.
Okay.
It wasn't like a drink. It was more of a here, taste the cap kind of a thing.
Okay.
And I'm like, I didn't like it. And then I just think it was the abuse. And then there were some other things that were going on that I found out later on about my father but it just, again, abusive.
Sure. So that move was to create distance then?
Yes. She was in fear of him because I remember her talking about sleeping with a knife under her neck or her pillow.
Wow.
Yes.
Did you ever talk to your dad after that?
Once, when I was, I think, 16 or 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I remember him saying to me is asking me if I did the white line. And I remember going, the what? I didn't know what that meant, but I kind of did. And then suddenly I was like, oh, he was asking me if I did drugs. I don't need this in my life. I don't want to.
Did you do the white line?
Yeah.
See, that just made me feel innocent because I'm like, oh, I walk it all the time. Okay, so your mom, though, she was a strong, healthy woman, did what she could, worked jobs, just tried to make a home for her children. You said 6? My goodness.
Yeah.
What number are you?
I'm 6.
You're the youngest of 6.
I am.
Okay. Your relationship at this point, up until this point, healthy with your siblings, combative?
There's from the oldest sibling to me, there was a 20-year gap.
Okay.
Then 19.
Sure.
I wasn't very close to the rest of them. By the time we got to California, they all thought that I was spoiled because I didn't have to go through what they went through with my father.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because the behavior continued even with them, I got to see a lot of what my dad did. And I got to see some of the abuse and the alcoholism.
So you're saying that they unfortunately picked up on his traits. And so you still suffer the repercussions of your father's abuse because of your siblings.
Yes.
Not necessarily through your father's own hands.
Right.
But because of what his children did because they watched him.
Yes. There was one night that I stayed up until, I would say, 4 o'clock in the morning, talking to my brother at about 14 or 15 years old, and he had red blotches all over his body from alcohol poisoning.
How old was your brother?
19 years older than me. So he was in his 30s, late
Okay.
30s. Yeah.
So
And then I often wound up taking care of their children, my nephews, and
because they were unable to take care of their children.
Yeah, I think one of the worst nights, that was one of the worst nights, and then there were other nights where I actually had to take out the cushions from the couch and put them outside because they had wet themselves from drinking so much.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah.
So, let's flash forward a little bit if we can. You're how old when you meet your husband?
I was 16.
16.
Yes.
How long did you date before you got married?
Let's see, I met at 16 and we moved to Arizona when I was 17. I graduated early.
So you moved with him
Yes.
pretty quick.
Yes.
What was the reason for moving to Arizona?
He asked me to go with him,
Okay. Why was he moving?
going to school.
Okay.
And
Going to college? Mm-hmm. How old was he?
he was 2 years older than me. So I was in high school when I met him, but he had already graduated.
I understand. Okay. And he was going to college right away.
No, he actually had taken a little break, and his parents were pushing, you got to do something.
Sure.
And he found a vocational school for CAD drafting.
Okay.
And so he wanted to go to
That's cool.
Arizona.
And so you said you'd go with him. Mm-hmm. So let me ask this question.
Okay.
Hindsight. Did you follow him out of absolute love? Or did you follow him as a way out from your home situation?
Hindsight, I would say that I was following him out of my family situation.
Right. In the moment, you might have said different.
Yes.
Years ago, if I had asked you that question, you may have reacted differently.
Yes, because in my opinion, what I saw was, and I said this for many years. He had the Beaver Cleaver family and I had the Adams family. Meaning he had the mom and dad that were still married, he had a brother, and it seemed, and a big family, and it seemed perfect. And I had, in fact, when we started dating, I don't remember, he came to a, what was I in? It was one of the sports that I was in, hockey, but it was the field hockey. And he came to the game, and which surprised me, and then he followed me home. But when we went home, I stopped at the end of the street and said I lived down there. I did not bring him actually to my house because I was so embarrassed.
Of your home.
Yes. It was the home that kids didn't go trick-or-treating to because they were scared.
They usually like being scared on Halloween.
No, this was not.
Maybe the place, no, it's a different type of scary.
Yes. It was like, I'm afraid of the people that live here.
Scary movie and a straight up horror flick.
We didn't need to decorate.
Yeah. So how long was it before you invited him to your family's home?
I don't remember exactly how long. I just remember that I developed this defense mechanism early on that if you were going to be invited to that place in my life, it was okay. It was when I've always had kind of like I kept cards close to the chest.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, here's this card, and if you don't like what you see, goodbye. I fully prepared myself for that moment.
Okay, Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he was fine, and he didn't judge, and we kept dating.
But it wasn't long after that you moved to Arizona.
Right.
So you moved to Arizona. You get married. You got married in Arizona?
No. I was 17. We were there for a year, came back,
Okay.
and then moved together into Sacramento, got jobs,
Wow.
and then we got engaged. We did get engaged when we were in Arizona.
How long were you engaged for?
3 years.
Wow. Okay. Kudos to you.
Yeah.
For that. That was good. And by good, I just mean,
We took our time.
Took your time. Okay, I'm not preaching. So then you have kids. You get married. You have kids.
2 years.
How long were you married?
We were married almost 20 years.
So the Rebecca, 22 years, and you said you were. So you're no longer married.
Right.
Okay. So the Rebecca that I'm talking to, the host of the Art of Sexuality, the relationship coach, when did you find her? Was it during your marriage? Was it after? When did you find the Rebecca that I'm talking to? I know she was always home, so I'm not implying that. But when did your lioness come out, so to speak?
She kind of evolved over time. My oldest son has a heart condition, and my youngest son had a speech problem.
Okay.
And those things really brought out the lioness in me.
Sure.
Because I had to fight and be their advocate.
Sure.
And at one point, I actually had to. Yes. I questioned our cardiologist. And it was kind of eye-opening to me because here I am. I'm not a doctor, but I'm trusting my instincts as a mother going, you know what? The surgery that you're telling us that we're going to do, you told me something different and it doesn't line up. I can't reconcile it. And he got defensive. About 6 months later, he calls me up and says, I'm sorry that I put your family on this path because I was wrong.
Wow.
And I said to him, it's okay, because one, we love you because you love our son as much as we do. You treat him like your child. And you got us prepared to deal with the surgery when it's actually time. So
Right.
I can't be angry at you. I totally forgave him. There was nothing to be mad at. And then it just made me trust my instincts that much more. So I just became such a fighter for all of this, for my kids. And then when the first surgery happened and the doctors after 9 months said, okay, you're good, we don't have to see you for a year, I went, okay, I need to take care of me again. I hadn't been doing that. I'd been focused on work and kids and doing everything for them, and suddenly I went to yoga. I found yoga. Because I needed to do something that was from the inside out, not just weightlifting. I wanted something for me inside to heal, and that just radically changed my life.
Yoga did.
Yes.
Why?
Because
How?
when you are sitting there, well, you know, as a female, I mean, I don't know about you. Well, we've had this conversation. When you're a young woman, one little thing a mother says to you, all of a sudden it gets in your head.
What
and
was this little thing?
She said that I inherited my grandmother's thunder thighs. So in my head, I was like,
Grandma had it going on.
yes, but I had this boom image in my head that I had like these giant thighs.
Yeah,
suddenly.
nobody likes the boom. Everybody likes the boom. I'm just going to say that. But go ahead. Go ahead.
So when I started going to yoga, all of a sudden you had to stare at yourself.
Oh, did
90
you
minutes.
embrace the boom?
No.
Oh.
This is the thing. All of a sudden I'm looking around, you know, I have to stare at myself. And I did not want to stare at myself. I would look at my ankles. I would look at my knees. I would look at any other part but straight in my face. And then one day, I'm in yoga, and I just kind of, you know, they promote, don't compare yourself to others. But suddenly I kind of was looking around at other women, and I'm like, oh, she's pretty, she's beautiful. And then I went, there's one woman caught my eye, and I thought, you know, her build was attractive. And then I looked at myself and I went, I'm actually a little thinner than her. My body looked totally different than, and it was eye-opening to me. And it made me embrace who I was that day for what I saw versus what somebody else put in my head.
Understand.
Yeah.
So because you felt closer to your body, did that help you explore your own personal sexuality better?
Well, okay, so here's what happened. So I get comfortable with my skin and who I am. Then yoga gets the blood flowing.
Okay.
You lock off certain body parts and then you open it up. And it was like every cell became awakened. And then I remember being at a gas station during this whole process, and I was struggling with putting gas in my car. And this is so simple. And this man comes over to me and helps me. And I still to this day don't know exactly why, but except I had blinders on. I had my head down. And I'm like, this man noticed me. This man asked me if I needed help.
Okay.
And it was like, there's a big world of people out there that I have not been paying attention to. So it was this series of events that took place. And then with yoga and the awakening of my body and awakening of how I saw myself, my sex drive went from already high, went to here.
Are you saying that you never thought you were noticeable before
Yes.
yoga?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So you do yoga, and is that what led you to being the host of the Art of Sexuality?
No.
Okay.
What it did was, because my sex drive became touching my own skin, it was like it was on fire. And I thought at 39 years old, I thought I actually suddenly developed a sex addiction problem because I wanted sex that much all day, every day. And it was tough.
I hope you're listening, David Duchovny.
Oh, it was an issue every day. And I would say, when I was married, I would go out for a run and I would come into the living room and go, bedroom, now. He wasn't complaining.
Yeah. I don't know many people that would.
No.
Except for me, I'm like, no, I didn't mean that at all. I wanted to say something like that. Anyways, okay, so you started getting more horny because of yoga.
Yes.
That's like what you said, right?
Yeah.
You said it way better than I just did. I made it really crude and rude. So you start doing yoga, you get more in touch with your body, you become empowered
Yes.
within your body, correct? Yep. That's why you're so in touch with every cell and every touch,
Yeah,
right?
It was interesting, and it was just I became awake.
You became more horny.
No, it was more. It was way
more beyond horny.
Yes, because I didn't understand what was happening with my body. I started doing research. And I came across some websites that talked about women, and there were a couple of things like, oh, well, sometimes at around 40, women's sex drive does increase. So we become the 18-year-old boy when we weren't, it kind of flip-flops. And so I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then I found this one site that talked about confidence, letting go, loving our bodies, loving who we are regardless, and getting out of our head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. And then through different channels, I found tantric sex and just started educating myself. And it's just been a decade-long journey for me to get to this point.
No, I love that.